In a state-of-the-art control room filled with humming servers, glowing screens, and the palpable tension of billions at stake, the future of interplanetary travel hung in the balance. All eyes were locked on the massive display as countdown clocks ticked relentlessly toward a decisive moment, a moment when a single system failure could cost SpaceX not just millions, but could potentially delay humanity's dream of reaching Mars. For the young engineers in the room, who had grown up believing that artificial intelligence and cutting-edge algorithms could solve any problem, the answer seemed simple: trust in technology. Yet, in the midst of their fervor for progress, one man, an aging veteran from the Apollo era, sat quietly in the corner, his eyes reflecting decades of experience and hard-won wisdom. James Harper had seen it all. 50 years ago, he had been a key aerospace engineer at NASA during the historic Apollo missions, a time when human ingenuity, meticulous calculations, and instinctual decision-making paved the way for mankind's first steps on the moon. Now, at 75, he had been invited to SpaceX as an honorary advisory consultant, a symbolic gesture meant to honor his legacy rather than to provide practical input. To most in the room, he was little more than a relic, a man from a bygone era whose methods were outdated in the age of AI and automation. But as the countdown neared zero, when the spacecraft's trajectory suddenly spiraled out of control, it became painfully clear that perhaps the old ways still held secrets modern technology could not fathom. What happened next would force everyone in that control room, and the world beyond, to re-examine the delicate balance between human experience and technological progress. It was an ordinary day at SpaceX. In a cavernous control room at the company's headquarters in Hawthorne, California, rows of monitors displayed streams of telemetry data from the Starship test flight. Engineers worked diligently, their faces bathed in the soft blue light of screens, as they monitored every parameter of the spacecraft's descent. Among them were brilliant young minds, raised on a cocktail of cutting-edge software and the promise of a future powered by artificial intelligence. At the heart of this technological marvel was the new autonomous landing system, a marvel of modern engineering designed to calculate and adjust the spacecraft's descent in real time, using data gathered from hundreds of test flights and millions of simulated scenarios. This system was the culmination of years of research and development, the pinnacle of what the latest generation of engineers could achieve. Leading this charge was James Miller, a 32-year-old prodigy fresh from MIT, whose confident demeanor and innovative ideas had earned him personal recognition from Elon Musk himself. In stark contrast to these bright, eager faces was one man who had witnessed the dawn of space exploration and had played a pivotal role in sending Apollo missions hurtling toward the moon. James Harper, a 75-year-old veteran of NASA's golden era, now sat quietly near the back of the room. Clad in a modest jacket and sporting a few silver strands in his hair, Harper's eyes, though weathered by time, shone with a quiet intensity. He wasn't invited here to take center stage. Instead, he was meant to serve as a symbolic reminder of how far human ingenuity had come. To the young engineers, however, he was just that, a symbol, not a resource. The engineers were abuzz with excitement and pride as they prepared for the next test flight. Elon Musk himself had been on site, engaging with the team, confident that their advanced AI system would once again prove its worth. "Are we ready?" Musk asked, his voice carrying the assurance of a man who had seen both triumph and failure. James Miller stepped forward, his tone brisk and assured. "We've optimized the system, Mr. Musk. Today is going to be historic." His words reverberated with the certainty of youth, bolstered by the relentless progress of technology. Across the room, Harper observed in silence. He had seen his share of history unfold. From the crackling static of radio transmissions during lunar missions to the raw human effort that powered the rockets of the Apollo era. He knew that technology, as brilliant as it was, sometimes failed to account for the unpredictable and the uncontrollable. His experienced eyes scanned the control screens, and even though the data appeared flawless at first glance, something in the numbers didn't sit right with him. "Let me try it my way," Harper said softly, his voice cutting through the chatter of the room. His tone was measured, not demanding, but it carried an undeniable weight of authority. His words fell on deaf ears, dismissed by those who saw him merely as a relic. The young engineers exchanged skeptical glances. To them, Harper's era was over. His techniques outdated relics of a time when manual calculations were the norm and human intuition ruled. James Miller, the lead engineer and representative of the new guard, couldn't resist a quip as he passed Harper's station. "Still here, Mr. Harper? I figured your generation preferred watching these things on a TV screen rather than being in the thick of it." His tone was light, yet laced with arrogance, as if to underline the stark generational divide that separated them. Harper merely chuckled, a soft, knowing sound that carried hints of both amusement and sadness. "I prefer to see it with my own eyes," he replied calmly. "There's a difference between theory and practice, something that no algorithm can fully capture." Despite the dismissive remarks, Harper's gaze remained fixed on the primary display, a real-time readout of Starship's descent. He noticed something alarming, subtle fluctuations in the sensor data that the new AI had overlooked. In his mind, a dreadful scenario began to unfold. Harper knew that if those small anomalies weren't corrected, they could cascade into a catastrophic failure. A failure that would cost not only billions of dollars, but could also derail the audacious plan to send humans to Mars. As the countdown began, the room filled with a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. Starship ignited with a roar, lifting off into the star-studded Texas sky. The telemetry readings were smooth at first, and Miller grinned with satisfaction as he watched the numbers, confident in the prowess of their autonomous system. But then, in a heartbeat, the tone shifted. Harper's experienced eyes caught a detail that sent a shiver down his spine. "Something isn't right," he murmured, almost to himself. His gaze flitted over the rapidly changing numbers. Thrust levels, descent angles, wind readings. A series of alerts flashed across the main screen in stark red. "Critical error. Landing software deviation." Before anyone could react, alarms began to blare throughout the control room. The once harmonious data feed was replaced by frantic messages and warnings. On the main display, the booster stage of Starship began to wobble violently, its descent trajectory deviating dangerously from the planned path. Panic gripped the room as engineers scrambled to re-establish control. Miller's confident facade crumbled, and his voice, usually so assured, trembled as he shouted, "That's impossible! We checked every algorithm! The AI should have accounted for this!" The realization was brutal. The booster stage, a marvel of modern engineering, now plummeted far faster than predicted. In the span of mere seconds, the spacecraft hurtled toward the landing pad at a rate that no simulation had ever suggested. With a deafening crash that seemed to echo through the very soul of the control center, Starship impacted the pad, triggering a massive explosion that sent shock waves of disbelief and despair through the room. Silence reigned for a long, agonizing moment. The brilliant blue of the monitors was replaced by the searing red of failure, and the cost, a staggering $200 million in one catastrophic moment, was laid bare before them. Miller's face drained of color, and the room filled with the low murmur of stunned voices. I don't understand what just happened," he managed to stutter, his words lost in the din of frantic keyboard clicks. It was then that Harper stepped forward. his eyes filled with the weight of experience locked onto Elon Musk's. "Do you really want to know what went wrong?" he asked quietly, his tone measured yet imbued with a seriousness that demanded attention. Musk, his expression dark and intense, nodded. "Tell me, Harper." James Harper took a deep breath, recalling the countless missions he had once helped steer to success during the Apollo era. "Back in my day," he began slowly, "we didn't rely solely on computers and algorithms. We combined our calculations with human judgment, our instincts honed by years of experience in the harsh realities of space. Today, your AI is processing vast amounts of data, but it has failed to account for the variable upper atmosphere wind conditions. Look at the landing trajectory. It's off by a small margin, a 3.2-degree deviation that your simulations didn't predict. That may seem minor, but in the real world, under actual conditions, it's enough to cause a catastrophic failure." Harper pointed to a series of figures on the screen, tracing the error back to the very design of the thrust control system. When you altered the thrust control during the landing phase, you relied on data gathered under perfect conditions. But the winds today are 12% stronger than during your simulations. The AI simply isn't programmed to adapt to these sudden changes. In the Apollo era, we would have made manual adjustments based on real-time observations. Sometimes you have to trust human intuition over pure data. A murmur ran through the room as engineers exchanged glances. Miller, his earlier arrogance now replaced by a dawning understanding and dread, struggled to reconcile his reliance on technology with Harper's stark warning. "So you're saying the system didn't fail, it was never designed to handle this?" he asked, his voice tentative. Harper nodded slowly. "Exactly. We programmed the system with assumptions based on past data. But real life is messy. Conditions change in ways that no simulation can fully predict. If you don't incorporate human oversight, you risk a failure like this again." The tension in the room was palpable. Elon Musk's eyes flickered between Miller and Harper as he absorbed the weight of the situation. After a long, measured pause, Musk spoke, his voice decisive. "I want to try it Harper's way." There was a stunned silence. Miller opened his mouth to protest, to defend the brilliance of his generation's technology. But Musk raised a hand to silence him. "I've made my decision," he declared. "We can't afford another failure. We're integrating Harper's manual override option immediately." Harper's calm presence now became the focal point of the entire room. With steady hands and unwavering focus, he stepped up to the manual controls. His expertise, honed over decades of aerospace challenges, was about to be put to the ultimate test. The engineers worked feverishly, reprogramming the landing system to include Harper's input. In what felt like a race against time, they made the necessary adjustments. The manual override feature, an old-school solution refined during the Apollo missions, was integrated into the current system. It was a fusion of the past and the present, a testament to the belief that human intuition could complement, if not sometimes outmatch, even the most advanced artificial intelligence. The countdown restarted. The room was silent as every eye fixed on the screen. Starship's engines roared to life once more, and this time, as it began its descent, Harper's steady hands took control. The telemetry readings showed promise. The descent was smooth, the correction angle exactly as Harper had calculated. Every engineer, every technician watched in hushed anticipation as the booster stage slowed its rapid descent. For several long, heart-stopping moments, time seemed to stand still. Then, with a final, precise adjustment by Harper, Starship touched down gently on the landing pad. There was no violent impact, no explosion, only a controlled, successful landing that defied the expectations of the room. The silence that followed was deafening, filled with a mixture of relief and awe. One by one, the engineers broke into applause, their earlier skepticism washed away by the undeniable success of Harper's intervention. Elon Musk stepped forward, his face a study in controlled emotion, as he looked at Harper. "You just saved this project," Musk said, his voice low yet laden with gratitude. Harper smiled gently, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. "No, Elon," he replied quietly. "I just proved that some things machines will never replace." His words resonated with a timeless truth, that technology, however advanced, was still a tool. And it was the human spirit, with its capacity for adaptability and instinct, that ultimately made it work. James Miller, once a confident advocate for the new ways, now stood humbled. Approaching Harper slowly, he spoke in a voice rough with emotion. "I was wrong about you. I thought our generation had nothing to learn from yours, that our AI would always prevail, but today you showed me that experience and human judgment are irreplaceable." Harper placed a steady hand on Miller's shoulder and said, "Technology is a tool, my friend. It can do wonders, but it must always be guided by human ingenuity. Never forget that." Musk, clearly moved by the entire ordeal, then addressed the room. "I want to make an announcement," he said firmly. "We are going to implement Harper's modifications permanently. James Harper, would you consider staying at SpaceX? I want you to share your knowledge with the next generation." The room erupted into astonished applause. Miller's eyes widened as he processed what he had just heard. The very man they had dismissed as a relic was now being asked to lead, a living bridge between the storied past of space exploration and the uncharted future of interplanetary travel. Harper paused for a moment, looking around at the young engineers with a mixture of pride and sorrow. "I won't stay forever," he said finally, his voice measured. "But I will teach you what I know. There's a reason we built our rockets the way we did back then, and there's a lesson here that no computer can teach." The applause grew louder, echoing the sentiment of a team now reawakened to the value of human insight. It was a turning point, a moment when experience had triumphed over blind reliance on technology, a moment when the legacy of the Apollo era was reborn in the modern age. In the days that followed the successful landing, the atmosphere at SpaceX was transformed. The engineers who had once scoffed at the idea of manual intervention now gathered around Harper to learn from his experiences. In long, impassioned discussions, he recounted tales of the Apollo missions, the meticulous calculations, the moments of near disaster, and the human courage that carried them through. He spoke of how every launch was fraught with uncertainty, how sometimes a slight adjustment made by a seasoned engineer could mean the difference between life and death. Over late-night cups of coffee and long hours spent poring over historical documents, Harper shared with the young engineers the art of reading the data with one's eyes and heart. He explained that while algorithms could crunch numbers and predict scenarios, they could never fully capture the nuances of the real world. A world where conditions change unpredictably, where even a slight gust of wind in the upper atmosphere could alter the course of a spacecraft. Miller, now a changed man, listened intently. "I used to believe that our systems were infallible," he admitted one evening as they reviewed the data from the test flight. "But you've shown me that there's an art to this work, one that can't be replaced by technology alone." His tone was reflective, tinged with a newfound humility. Elon Musk, who had observed these discussions quietly, often joined in with his own questions, seeking to bridge the gap between the precision of modern science and the intuition of human experience. "Tell me, James," Musk would ask, What was the most critical moment during the Apollo missions where human judgment saved the day? And Harper, with a gentle smile, would recount the stories of astronauts who made split-second decisions that had altered the course of history. As the team continued to refine their systems using Harper's insights, the atmosphere at SpaceX evolved from one of cold, clinical detachment to one of collaborative innovation. The integration of manual override options wasn't just a technical adjustment. It was a philosophical statement that progress required both the best of new technology and the enduring wisdom of those who came before. Word of the historic test and Harper's critical role soon spread beyond the walls of SpaceX. Within days, articles appeared in top scientific journals, and interviews with Harper were broadcast across major networks. Headlines proclaimed that a 75-year-old Apollo veteran had saved a multi-billion-dollar mission, a narrative that captivated the world and ignited debates about the value of experience in a rapidly evolving technological landscape. Among those watching closely was a group of young engineers, many of whom had grown up in the era of smartphones and artificial intelligence. They found themselves at a crossroads, torn between the promises of relentless innovation and the timeless lessons of human ingenuity. At company events and technical conferences, debates sparked up about whether the future of aerospace lay solely in automation or whether there was still a place for the instincts of a seasoned veteran. In one such debate at an aerospace symposium, a panel of experts discussed the merits of manual versus automated control systems. One young engineer argued passionately, "AI can process millions of data points in a fraction of a second. There's no way a human can compete with that level of precision." In response, an older engineer leaned forward and said, "That may be true, but no algorithm can replace the intuition built over decades of experience. Sometimes you need to trust your gut, and that gut is something only a human can have." The discussion resonated deeply with audiences around the world, sparking a renewed appreciation for the contributions of veterans and experienced professionals in the high-tech world. Universities and technical schools began to invite older engineers to share their wisdom, and mentorship programs blossomed, pairing young innovators with seasoned veterans. For James Miller, the experience was transformative. He spent long hours with Harper, learning not just about the technical details of rocket landings, but also about the historical context of human spaceflight. The challenges, the risks, the stories of triumph and failure that had defined an entire era. Miller's perspective shifted dramatically. He began to see technology not as an infallible savior, but as a tool that must be wielded by capable, thoughtful people. One evening, after a particularly intense review session, Miller approached Harper quietly in the now dimly lit control room. "I used to think our generation had nothing to learn from the past," he said softly. "But you've shown me that without the wisdom of those who came before, we're just running in circles. Thank you for giving us a second chance." Harper smiled, his eyes reflecting both pride and melancholy. "Remember," he said, "technology is a tool. It's the people who use it that make the difference. Never forget that." The successful landing test marked a turning point not just for SpaceX, but for the entire aerospace industry. With the integration of Harper's manual override system, the company was able to secure additional funding and rebuild confidence in its mission to reach Mars. Elon Musk, known for his unyielding drive and bold ambitions, publicly credited Harper for saving the project. In a widely viewed press conference, Musk said, "Today we witness not just a technological breakthrough, but a powerful reminder of the value of experience. James Harper has shown us that while we may build the future, we must never forget the lessons of the past." His intervention today saved us from a costly mistake and reinforced a principle that is as old as space exploration itself. Human ingenuity can never be replaced. The announcement was met with thunderous applause, and news of Harper's heroics spread like wildfire. From tech blogs and aerospace journals to mainstream news outlets. For many, it was a reminder that the human spirit, with all its imperfections, remained the ultimate force behind progress. For others, it was an indictment of a society that had once so readily dismissed the wisdom of its elders. In the weeks that followed, internal ceremonies were held at SpaceX, in a grand hall filled with the company's brightest minds and most passionate supporters. Elon Musk took the stage once more. With the projector screen displaying images of the historic landing, Musk recounted the day's events. He said, "We sometimes forget that every technological marvel is built on the foundation of human effort." James Harper, a veteran from the Apollo era, reminded us today that experience and intuition are invaluable. Let this be a lesson for all of us, that while we push the boundaries of what is possible, we must also honor and learn from those who paved the way. The room erupted in applause as Harper, seated in the front row, nodded silently. It was a moment of reconciliation between the old and the new. A melding of eras that promised to shape the future of aerospace innovation. Beyond the walls of SpaceX, Harper's story ignited conversations across the globe. In scientific conferences, media interviews, and online forums, people debated the merits of relying solely on artificial intelligence versus integrating human oversight. Many saw Harper's intervention as a wake-up call that no matter how advanced our machines become, there is an irreplaceable value in human experience. Universities and research institutions began inviting veteran engineers to speak about their experiences. Courses were developed that blended modern technology with classical methods of problem-solving, ensuring that future generations would never again overlook the wisdom of the past. Mentorship programs were established, pairing young engineers with seasoned veterans who had witnessed the evolution of space travel from the ground up. One particularly moving documentary, titled "The Last Apollo Engineer," chronicled Harper's life, from his days working on the Apollo missions to his critical role at SpaceX. The film featured archival footage, interviews with his former colleagues, and raw, unfiltered scenes from the test flight that had almost ended in disaster. It became an instant sensation, inspiring countless young people to consider careers in aerospace engineering and to value the lessons of history. For Harper himself, the renewed recognition was bittersweet. He had long accepted that his role was largely symbolic, an honorary nod to a bygone era. Yet, as he spoke at various events, his voice resonated with the deep-seated truth that the sacrifices of the past should never be forgotten. Every test, every launch, every failure, and every success, he would say, reminds us that space exploration is not just a technological endeavor, it's a human one. And that, my friends, is what makes it so remarkable. In private moments, when the applause had faded and the cameras were turned off, Harper would often reflect on the day's events. He remembered the skepticism in Miller's eyes, the tension in the control room, and the look of determination that had carried him through those critical seconds. It was a reminder that sometimes the most profound breakthroughs occur not in the quiet hum of servers or the blinking of data on screens, but in the brave, imperfect decisions made by human beings. The success of the manual override test had far-reaching implications for the future of aerospace technology. SpaceX quickly integrated Harper's method into its standard operating procedures, and the company began to work on a new generation of hybrid systems, ones that combined the precision of AI with the adaptive intuition of experienced engineers. This new approach was hailed as a breakthrough in reliability and safety, setting a precedent for the industry as a whole. Other aerospace companies, inspired by SpaceX's willingness to honor the past, began to re-examine their own systems. Conferences were held, white papers were published, and a new era of collaboration between veteran engineers and modern technologists was born. The debate over the limits of artificial intelligence versus human judgment became a cornerstone of academic and industrial discussions, one that would influence the design of spacecraft, aircraft, and even terrestrial transportation systems. Elon Musk, ever the visionary, embraced this shift wholeheartedly. In interviews, he often remarked, "Our progress is built on the shoulders of giants. We must never forget that the pioneers of space exploration, those brave men and women who worked in the shadow of uncertainty, gave us the foundation upon which we build our dreams today." His words resonated deeply with a generation that had sometimes dismissed the wisdom of its elders, and they sparked a renewed sense of purpose across the industry. Years later, as SpaceX continued to push the boundaries of what was possible in space travel, the legacy of James Harper remained a potent reminder of the enduring value of human experience. At annual company celebrations and technical symposiums, Harper's story was retold with reverence. Engineers, both young and old, would gather around him during breaks, eager to learn about the techniques and insights that had saved a mission and in many ways reshaped the future of aerospace engineering. During one such gathering, a young engineer, once a staunch advocate for complete automation, approached Harper with a mixture of humility and curiosity. "Mr. Harper," he said softly, "I used to think that data and algorithms could solve any problem, but after what you did today, I realized that human intuition is something no computer can replicate." "How did you know?" Harper looked into the young man's eyes, his voice gentle yet firm. "Experience," he replied. "Experience, and the willingness to trust your gut when the numbers don't tell the whole story." That simple exchange encapsulated the heart of a new era, a future where technology and human wisdom would work side by side, each complementing the other. It was a future built on the belief that progress was not measured solely in lines of code or bytes of data, but in the collective spirit of those who dared to dream, to innovate, and to push the limits of possibility. James Harper's journey from a veteran of the Apollo missions to a savior of modern spaceflight became a bridge between generations. For the young engineers at SpaceX, he was not just a symbol of the past, but a living mentor whose lessons transcended time. For the seasoned professionals who had once labored in the dusty corridors of NASA, Harper's success was a vindication, a reminder that the wisdom of the past still held relevance in an era defined by rapid technological change. In boardrooms and laboratories across the country, the story of that fateful test flight was discussed as a case study. It was a story of risk and reward, of the delicate balance between faith in technology and the unyielding power of human judgment. Universities incorporated Harper's approach into their curricula, teaching students that while modern tools were indispensable, they must always be guided by the principles honed through experience. At one prestigious aerospace conference, a panel discussion titled "Human Intuition in the Age of AI" featured Harper as a keynote speaker. The room was filled with the brightest minds in engineering and technology, and as Harper recounted his experiences during the Apollo missions and the recent SpaceX test, a hush fell over the audience. "Technology is our greatest ally," he said, "but it is our human spirit, our ability to adapt, to think, and to feel that makes us truly unstoppable." The message resonated deeply. Attendees left the conference with a renewed commitment to integrating human insight into their designs and workflows, ensuring that the lessons of history would guide the innovations of tomorrow. As the years turned into decades, the legacy of James Harper's bold intervention continued to inspire and shape the future of aerospace. SpaceX's success in refining its landing systems and the industry's shift toward a hybrid model of automation and human oversight became hallmarks of a new era in space exploration. The story of the 75-year-old Apollo veteran who had saved a multi-billion-dollar mission was celebrated not only as a technical triumph, but as a testament to the indomitable human spirit. In quiet moments, when the hum of engines and the glow of computer screens faded into the background, engineers and scientists would reflect on the lessons learned that day. They recalled the wisdom that Harper had imparted, that even in a world dominated by data and algorithms, human intuition remains a critical, irreplaceable asset. His calm, resolute voice echoed in their memories. Never forget that technology is only as good as the people who use it. For Elon Musk and his team, Harper's legacy became a guiding principle. It reminded them that progress was not just about pushing the boundaries of what machines could do, it was about honoring the contributions of those who had paved the way. Musk himself often remarked that the future of SpaceX depended on a fusion of old-school determination and modern innovation, a lesson that had been written into the very fabric of the company's culture that day. James Miller, once a fervent believer in the infallibility of AI, found his perspective forever altered. He began to champion a more balanced approach, one that embraced both the precision of technology and the irreplaceable value of human insight. "We're not just building rockets," he would say in meetings, "we're carrying forward the legacy of every engineer who ever worked on a spacecraft. That legacy is built on trust, on experience, on knowing that sometimes you have to trust your gut." And so, as humanity continued its quest to reach Mars and beyond, the lessons of that fateful test flight lived on. Every successful landing, every new technological breakthrough, was a reminder of the day when the wisdom of the Apollo era proved indispensable in the modern age. A day when a veteran's bold move saved not only a mission, but the dreams of a generation. In a quiet corner of the SpaceX headquarters, James Harper would sometimes sit by a window, looking out at the endless Texas sky. He recalled the days of Apollo, the thrill of watching a spacecraft lift off for the moon, and the challenges that had defined an era. Now, as he saw Starship preparing for another test flight, he smiled gently, knowing that even as technology advanced, the heart and soul of space exploration remained the same. The story of James Harper stands as a bridge between past and future, a testament to the enduring value of human experience, the importance of listening to those who came before us, and the realization that sometimes, in the midst of our most advanced technologies, the simplest human touch can save the day. In our increasingly digital and automated world, one might wonder, can a 75-year-old man truly outthink the most advanced artificial intelligence? The answer, as demonstrated by James Harper's bold intervention at SpaceX, is a resounding yes. His legacy reminds us that technology, no matter how advanced, is a tool that must be wielded by human beings who understand that the spirit of innovation is inseparable from the lessons of history. Harper's decisive actions on that fateful day not only prevented a costly failure, but also sparked a broader conversation about the role of human judgment in an era of rapid technological change. His intervention became a symbol that even in the face of seemingly infallible algorithms, the human mind, shaped by decades of experience and enriched by the trials of the past, remains indispensable. As you reflect on this story, consider the lessons it offers. In our quest for progress, let us never forget that the wisdom of those who have walked before us is a treasure that no amount of data can replace. Embrace the blend of old and new, of intuition and innovation, and remember that sometimes the most revolutionary ideas come from listening to the quiet voices of experience. So, what do you think? Does human intuition still have a place in a world ruled by AI and automation, or will technology one day completely replace the need for human judgment? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story inspired you, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories of triumph, innovation, and the enduring power of the human spirit.